Hello, we are the team Synesthesia and welcome behind the scenes of our movie.
Synesthesia is a movie about a couple of musicians, Thomas and Emma. When Emma loses her life, Thomas creates a machine to bring her back through music.
One of the most important goals in creating this short movie was to make it filled with emotion. We wanted the story to take place in a science fiction environment.
The music in this movie has a very important narrative role. We worked closely with Aurélien Marini to create a score that would serve our purposes and elicit emotion.
Since the entire story takes place in a single setting, we decided to create everything from scratch.
The previews help us anticipate the lack of natural light and the lack of space. My schedule allowed us to save time on the preparation of the sets and briefing of the actors. I did the rig of the digital double of Emma. It needed to allow for realistic deformation to match the live footage. So, I used joints to emulate the movement of the pectoral muscle and the scapula.
I coded a script in Python that allowed us to export the 3D camera from Maya to Houdini. Since I was working with the same file for different shots, I used HScript to code my render nodes. This let me automatically export the right element for the right shot in the right place.
Our movie is based on the link between images and sound, so we decided to study cymatics. We created our own Chladni plate to observe how grains of sand behave when exposed to sound. This eventually became the basis of the art direction for the effects in the film.
I created a setup in Houdini using mathematical equations in VEX to reproduce these patterns on a grid. The results were very interesting, but we had to test it on a human body to see if it would work.
I used this setup to test the effect in the final sequence. We saw that the patterns were not organic enough, so we decided to go in a more abstract and ghost-like direction, taking our inspiration from images of the cosmos and from the human neural system. First, I created a setup in Houdini to build the curves inside the volume of the geometry. Then, I divided the body into sections. This gave me total control over the look of the curves. I then coded an algorithm in VEX to animate the reveal and the disappearance of the curves. Finally, I enhanced the ghostly look by creating separate simulations of particles for each body part. For the rendering, I created custom attributes for the color and the relighting of the particles that I used in Mantra. I also put in place a set of points as geolights to create a relighting pass for a better integration of the effect.
I used ROLAND setup and modified it in order to create the neural patterns on the surface of the body. I divided the body in 4 different parts using selection with bounding objects to handle the future updates of the body. I created a controller node to manage the aesthetics of each body part and its layers. I was able to add more layers easily by creating good naming conventions using HScript. Lastly, I made the curves emit particles to achieve a more otherworldly effect.
We wanted to keep the effects on Emma's body after she wakes up, but the process would have involved a lot of body tracking. To save time, I made the points spread throughout the room in Houdini with particle simulations and rigid body collisions. This added parallax to the traveling shots and gave a surreal dimension to the sequence. For the explosion scene, I used a combination of smoke, particles, and procedural systems to create the shockwave and the vanishing of Emma's body. I also replaced some cables with wire simulations to add realism to the scene.
My main task in post-production was the effect during the flying POV. In this sequence, the tension rises as the experiment to revive Emma fails. At first, I was inspired by the look of iron filings moved by a magnet. we shot many references to understand how this material behaved. I created a setup in Houdini based on render curves. These curves were remapped with custom attributes in VEX to animate them. To avoid simulation and optimize rendering time, I use first zoom to remove any element outside the axis of my camera. All the renders were made in Mantra, so I use attributes created in my Houdini setup to provide complementary data for shading. I shaded the effect to look like heated metal mixed with a layer of iron fillings. Finally, I made the subsurface effect in Nuke with different layers.
For the compositing of the FX on the body at the beginning of the experiment, I recreated the lighting on set and matched the skin texture of the actress in 3D. Then, I used my particles as geolight and rendered the path with the particles lighting the body for a better integration of the effect.
For the reawakening sequence, I kept the highest resolution possible by combining different shots for the body and the face. Finally, I projected this footage using camera mapping on the 3D body that was created with a photogrammetry.
I was in charge of the flying POV compositing. I recreated the set using projection mapping. For Emma, I separated the body in 3 parts. I projected the head on a card to keep its movement in the shot. For the chest, I made a plate with different images. Then, I projected the chest on the arm using low-resolution geometry. I was also in charge of the look dev. We wanted a cool nebulous mood, so I composited stock shots of smoke and dust and used volume rays from the top. For the color grading, we created a soft blue tint on a monochrome contrasted look that fits with the story's poetic mood. I intensified the rim lights on the characters and darkened the area around them, keeping only a few speculas to maintain the contrast.
Our movie is the result of lots of visual research, creativity, and hard work. We hope you enjoyed the outcome of this experiment. Thank you.